Alright, so all right. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for allowing me to participate in your safety meeting. We'll go ahead and get started. First thing I want to share with you is some recent events that I found on the internet, and some of these I could actually remember from seeing on the news. On the left here, you got William Hunter Miller. He's 20 years old. He's from Jinx, worked in Sapulpa at Paragon Industries, and they handle some large pipe. William worked the late shift, and one night as he was trying to wrap up, they were moving some pipe, and they were using a forklift to go across the yard, and William decided to jump on the side of it. And unfortunately for William, he fell off and was crushed by the forklift. He died at work that night. On the right side, we have another story that's from the Oklahoma City area. Similar situation, except it's not a pedestrian involved. We actually have a tip-over accident. And this happened at a granite company, and this guy was outside. That's an actual shot of the scene, and he was outside trying to unload some granite from that truck there. And as he picked up the granite and went to back out, his load shifted and the forklift tipped over and it crushed him. One of the things that I thought was interesting about this story was that there's actually two stories related to this. And on the first story, it's just breaking news, and it says worker pinned under forklift. And then if you look up above it to more recent, there's the updated headline that says worker pinned under the forklift killed in accident. So that tells me it was probably a pretty brutal situation. As you can see here in the screen, there's emergency vehicles all around. You got police, ambulance, fire. Just pretty much everybody that could possibly help was there. And there's still nothing that they were able to do for him. And both of these incidents have a lot of things in common. But the one thing that I want to point out to this group is that neither one of these guys or gals in this situation, this person I identified in the story, but they didn't plan on dying when they got to work that day. They went to work to do their job, to basically do what we do every day. They come into work to a place that has powered industrial vehicles, and unfortunately for them, because of an unsafe behavior or because of a lack of awareness, they both died at work that night. So really serious situation. So today we're going to talk about powered industrial vehicle safety in the distribution center and how it's every associate's responsibility. I know this month has been National Safety Month, and as an organization we've been talking about powered industrial vehicles and how we can do a better job with that. One of the reasons they focused on that is because that's one of our highest incident rates in the company. We have a lot of things that involve powered industrial vehicles. We've had two here this year, which one of them was really serious. And I know that one of you's here. I don't know which one of you. Yeah, I mean, that was a close call, man. So I'm not even going to say you got lucky, but, I mean, that could have been a lot worse. But it's something that could happen at any point during the day, and it's something we got to take serious. And as a safety team, you've got to help keep the awareness out in the building. So, and it's not just for the operators; it's also for the people working in the stations and the work area. So it's just as much the pedestrian's responsibility as it is the operators. So as we go through this, I'm going to share with you some statistics from a national level, from a work type, and then we'll talk about some more specific stuff to this location. We'll talk about operator responsibilities and pedestrian responsibilities, and then we'll close up. To begin with, on the statistics, these are national estimates of the leading causes of death in the United States. Accidents are number 5 on the list. Some of the other ones ahead of that probably won't surprise you, but accidents kind of did, because when I hear the word accident, to me that means it could have been prevented. And you had 121,000 incidents where some type of accident occurred, whether it be a car crash, some type of other event that basically cost somebody their life. And that's a pretty big number, especially considering that they probably could have been prevented with increased awareness or safer behavior. Now, to narrow that down a little bit, this one is just unintentional fatal injuries that happen in the workplace. So the data on here is from 2008 and 2009. The yellow bar is 2009, and as you go to the right, you can see how many people died in that industry. And then the blue is 2009. And the chart looks really good. It looks like that from 2008 to 2009, there was a decrease in fatalities, in unintentional injuries in the workplace, which is a great thing. But if you notice right here at wholesale trade, which is what we do, it's the only one on the list where there was actually more deaths in 2009 than there were 2008. And for me personally, I think that a lot of that has to do with awareness and just being complacent within the facilities. You can also look at this, and you could probably loop in transportation and warehousing and probably retail trade. We can kind of fit in any of those categories. And you come up with about 1,000 people a year that are dying. And these are unintentional accidents. So to get to some more familiar statistics, some stuff that's been posted around the facility, the National Safety Council reports that the #1 cause of lift truck work-related fatalities involves pedestrians being struck by equipment. So that's your #1, which we already talked about. The guy earlier that jumped on the side, he was a pedestrian that decided to jump in the way of a piece of equipment. That's your #1 cause. Your #2 cause is going to be overturns, which was the other incident we discussed. And that was kind of coincidence that I picked those two stories. They were just happened to be the first two on the Google search that, I looked for forklift accidents, and that's what came up. And it matches up with all the statistics perfectly on that. So it's important to remember this because as we go through the as we go through the presentation, pedestrians is one thing I'm going to point out in this. I know you guys have shared a lot of information this month related to this, some take fives and other things. As I looked through the material, most of it was operator focused. And to me, that was a little bit off since pedestrians are our #1 related fatality right there. So to talk about the facility, last week I got with Frank while he was here, the maintenance manager. I asked him, I said, how many pieces of equipment do we actually have in the building? Because I don't think that we ever really realize how much is in here. Sometimes people ask me, they say, how much equipment's in the building? I'm like, man, there's a ton of equipment. Well, actually, there's about 100 tons of equipment in here. So if you add up the weight of the 19 stock pickers, the 5 double reaches, the 6 fork trucks, and then throw in the other, smaller pieces of equipment, you come out to just less than 100 tons of equipment here. These things are extremely heavy if you're not already aware of that. I mean, they've got the lead batteries in them, and they can do some major damage. So you factor in that number of pieces of equipment in the building and combine that with the width of our aisles. The majority of our aisles are about 4 to 8 feet wide. Our main aisle here that we travel down is about 8 feet at the most. Most of the time I look out there right now and there's some stuff parked there which narrows it even more. And if you're somewhere between the beginning of Zone B and the end of Zone C walking down there to take a smoke break or something, you really don't have any room if there's 2 vehicles coming. A stock picker is going to be about, 42 inches wide probably, and you got an 8-foot wide aisle there. So, there's not a lot of room to get through in here. It's a pretty tight place. So here's some illustrative comparisons. When I think about that, it kind of reminds me of the stuff I see on TV. You see, clips of, the traffic in Asia or in India where it just looks like chaos, man. You got traffic going every which direction, people running out, trying to cross the street. And then at the bottom, there's other things I've seen, in Europe, they've got these little narrow cobblestone streets. And you see cars zipping up and down. It's like one-way aisles. And when I see that stuff on TV, it makes me uneasy. I get uncomfortable and get a little bit of anxiety. I'm thinking, man, how do these people do that? How do they live in a place where, traffic's crazy and you got people just walking out in front of you and it seems like there's no rhyme or reason. But if you take a step back, they do it the same way we do it. That's the environment we work in every day out here. There's not a tremendous amount of signage out there. There's not stoplights. There's not, police, so to speak. And these people get used to it, and that's kind of what we do. We get used to it. Every day we come in, and it's just the way how we operate. So, in order to stay safe, we have to create more awareness. We have to make sure people are always thinking about, how dangerous it can be out there. And so, one option is to put signs out there. We can put signs all over the place, but how many signs are you going to put? Here's some random signs that I found on the internet that I thought could apply. One funny one in there, obviously, but the rest of them, theoretically, you can put signs everywhere. And if you think about just on your drive to work, how many signs did you pass? You probably don't know because you probably didn't count them. You probably didn't notice the majority of them. And I think signs are a great addition. I think they definitely raise awareness and they help people to learn where the problem areas are at. But it's not the only thing. You can't just put signs out there and walk away from it. So let's talk about raising awareness with the operators. We've got a long list of things here that the operators all have to be aware of. I've got speed and pedestrians highlighted for a reason. On the speed, as I look through the material that was shared from our national safety team, they kind of focus on equipment speed. And that's definitely part of the equation when it comes to safety. But the speed that when I think of unsafe situations and speed, what I think about is the guy who's been here 12 hours a day and he just wants to get out of here. Or the guy who's nearing the end of his shift or is getting close to lunch or something like that. He's got 3 orders left in his gun and he just wants to go. He just wants to get that stuff on his picker and get out of here. And it's not that he's put safety on a shelf. He's still aware that he has to be safe, but because he's so focused on getting his job done, it's clouded his vision of safety. You know, at 6 o'clock at night, is everyone still stopping at the end of the aisles, honking and observing before they proceed? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I know that when I was a puller, I wouldn't have done that. It wouldn't have mattered what signs were out there. If I'm trying to get done, I'm going to keep going. And I know that's not the right answer. I probably shouldn't say that, but I think we would all agree it's reality. So speed is definitely a factor, but I think that we have to keep in mind that it's not just flying down the ramps or the forklifts. Another thing that some of our forklifts are really fast. And when we got pack areas like LTL lines that get congested, and you got big tall pallets stacked up, and guys that are trying to work and process those orders. If somebody's flying through there on a piece of equipment, whether it be a Taylor gun or one of the stock pickers, speed can definitely be a dangerous issue. But I think that something else to keep in mind and to remind the pullers or anybody put away or anybody that's on a piece of equipment trying to get a job done is that they have to keep an awareness of safety in their surroundings so that they're not, going to put anybody else at risk, including themselves. Pedestrians is down at the end of this list, and operators absolutely have a responsibility to look out for pedestrians. I think we would all agree that the pedestrians typically have the right of way in the building. If a piece of equipment comes up and there's a pedestrian there, they should slow down and stop. As we talked about earlier, pedestrians being struck by equipment is the #1 related cause of death in the facility. So the operators definitely have to look out for the pedestrians. But I will argue that pedestrians also have a responsibility in the operation. So, for example, every Friday I go eat lunch with my wife. She works downtown at the VA, and we eat lunch right across the street. And for us to get over to the restaurant, we have to cross through traffic. That's a pretty busy area right there. I'm sure right there on Main Street, most of you know what I'm talking about. And I was just there 30 minutes ago or whatever. But in order for me to cross the street, I've got to play Frogger with traffic. So, we kind of sit on the sidewalk and we kind of look for an opening and we'll cross 2 lanes and then we'll stop in the middle and wait for some more traffic to go. Then we'll go again. Well, if I run out across the street and get hit by a car that's going the speed limit doing everything they're supposed to do, whose fault is that? That's my fault. That's not the guy driving the car. And that's kind of what I'm driving at with the pedestrian safety in the facility. I think that we definitely owe it to them to have trained operators and for our operators to be safe and be as aware as they can. But if I take off through the building at 6 o'clock at night and I decide I want to go look in the auction bin, and on the way back I come up the back aisles, well, the night crew is going to be here operating. They're not used to seeing me out there walking around. And if they pull up to the end of an aisle, even if they do the shop, even if they stop and honk and observe, what if I'm in their blind spot and they pull out and hit me? That's probably not their fault. It's probably mine for being in a place I'm not supposed to be at. So that's what we're driving at with pedestrian safety. Lots of areas in the buildings that we have to be aware of, and that these guys, I think everyone in the facility has a responsibility for being safe around the equipment. It doesn't matter where you work at. After you clock in, you've got to cross that main aisle at some point. Whether you're going to the restroom, the smoke area, your pack area, whatever it is, back to receiving. So they have to keep an awareness just as much as the operators do. And it's not just new people. I think our older people and office people like me can even stand to be reminded sometimes that, hey, while you're out on the floor, stay away from the blind corners, stay out of the dangerous areas, and be aware that we got guys out here trying to get stuff done. They're distracted. They've got things going through their head. They're looking at their RF unit. There's blind spots, So this is what I'm driving at. The pedestrians have just as much responsibility as the operators. So to kind of wrap up, right now, imagine if we heard a loud noise. There's a big bang out in the facility, just some unusual noise. You heard a scream. All of a sudden, the facility kind of went quiet. The lines went dead and everything else. And we looked out the window, and we saw a serious accident. We could tell by looking out there, by the look on people's faces, by the reactions of things that were going on. Even if it didn't happen right there, we could tell something was going on. Somebody comes running up the stairs, busts in here and says, "Hey, man, somebody just went off the dock." or hey, somebody just tipped over the forklift, or hey, one of the LTL packers just got smashed by a forklift. It's bad. Hurry up, get out here. How's that make you feel? It makes me sick. I can tell you that when I was a safety manager for the company, that was one of my worst nightmares. Getting a call or having somebody bust in the offices with just a, one of those catastrophic events. And it doesn't always have to be death. Obviously death is the most extreme, but, what if the guy, what if he smashes his leg and it ends up, he's out of work for a long time, or, it has to have an amputation. What if it's a tip over accident? It doesn't kill him, but it does something to him to paralyze him, or, to cost him, basically, his normal life. So those are the things that we have to keep in mind. And that's why I think it's so important that we drive not just safety with the operators, but safety with the pedestrians as well. Because again, if you'll go back to those National Safety Council statistics, the pedestrians are involved in the #1 cause of incidents. So you got to put those two together. The other thing is the overturns, and we do a lot of stuff to address that. But throughout this month, as you've been giving your communication stuff, if you've been focusing on the operators in your groups or whatever, I think that we probably missed a pretty important piece of the puzzle. So that's all I got. Thank you guys for your time. I appreciate it. And if you got any questions, let me know.